Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 10 of the Rico and Declan College Football Show. I'm Rico. Declan is sleeping, as you can guess. He just turned 9 months today, so happy 9-month birthday to Declan. Shout out to my wife. She's done an incredible job with him. And shout out to my family. But anyways, not a lot of college football news to get into. I'm going to go probably right into the rosters. Tonight we're going to be covering Boston College, SMU, NC State, Wake Forest, and last but not least, Syracuse. So these are the last 5 teams in the ACC that I'm going to be covering. Starting tomorrow, we're going to cover the Big 12, predict that. I'm also going to give my Coach of the Year and Player of the Year for the ACC, and I'll pick my ACC winner. And I'll give you a hint, it's between Miami and Clemson. I'll just leave that for foreshadowing. But anyways, the college football news I want to get into is that Florida State has made an agreement, a tentative agreement. We'll see if it's in writing, if it's actually official, but this is what I was hearing from Instagram and online. They made an agreement with Georgia to have a neutral site game against the Bulldogs in 2028 in the new stadium for the Tennessee Titans over in Nashville. I don't like this idea at all. I think Georgia would roll us. I know I'm, predicting ahead of time because this is in 2028, but we need a lot of changes. We need a lot of talent to compete with Georgia, and we're not at that same scale as them. So to make an agreement, I know it's for money, I know it's for revenue, but we're going to get killed. And we're going to be on the national stage. It's going to just be a blowout. So I don't like that idea. In a perfect world, I wish they did a home-and-home, one game being played in Georgia over in Athens, and one game being played in Tallahassee for Florida State. So they're going to play in Nashville, and maybe they could do it home-and-home, but it's probably going to be neutral sites, just like when Florida State was playing against LSU for the last couple of years up until last season. Or maybe the season before, but anyways, let's go into the ACC remaining teams, the 5 teams I just mentioned, and we'll start off by discussing about Boston College. That's weird. They're not showing up on my screen here. There we go. All right, I'll pull that up for you guys. This is going to be a lot shorter than the episode before, which was an hour and 40 minutes. I don't know how I ramble for that long, but I do enjoy doing content. Boston College, they're going to be led by Bill O'Brien. I was surprised that Bill O'Brien got, another chance, another season with the Golden Eagles, or Eagles, whatever you want to call them. They're terrible. They are one of the worst teams in the ACC. I think Stanford is a worse team, but I got to look at this roster. They finished last season, if we look at their record here, they were 16th in the ACC. But let's look at their roster. Their QB is Mason McKenzie. And Mason McKenzie, I don't know if he's going to be the starter. There's no real information about him. Grayson Wilson, he transferred from Arkansas, didn't even play there. Femi Balboa, man, they got some random QBs. Evan Dickens, let's look at their running backs. He's coming from Liberty. He had a good season with with Liberty, but I just don't see him replicating that with Boston College. Boston College is in a huge rebuild. Nolan Ray, he's coming from Maryland. His stats are all right. So you got 2 running backs that are transfers. We don't know really much about them. They got some new tackles and a new left guard. Their wide receivers, they got a bunch of new guys. Javarius Green, he's coming from North Carolina, didn't really play much there. Reed Swanson. Nothing about him. He came from Colgate. Landon Wright. He's coming from Washington State. He did all right. There's not a lot about him. Jaden Skeet. An okay season. Nothing to write home about. He does have 3 touchdowns from last season. Jackson Wade. He's coming from Florida. Didn't even play there. Their offense is horrendous, to say the least. Let's look at their defense. Ella, I guess. I don't know how you pronounce it. Boykin. Nothing really about him. Demetrius Ballard. He had 1.5 sacks. He's coming from Buffalo. That's not a good conference, the MAC. Jason Flint. Nothing really about him. KJ Sampson. Let's look him up. He was a defensive tackle. Christian Hudson. Nothing really about him. Yeah, they got a lot of no names. Chris Morable Jr. Nothing really about him. He had 1/2 sack. Chris Jones. So their defensive ends are not talented. Let's look at their linebackers. Yeah, they don't really have a lot of guys that are notable. Bodie Calhoun. Nothing. He's a Notre Dame transfer. But that's not saying much if you didn't get to play at the Fighting Irish. Justin Medlock. He had 1 interception and 1 sack. Anthony Polano. Oh, I already looked up his stats. Max Tucker. Why is it not loading? Oh, there we go. Max Tucker, he's a corner, had 1 interception, 2 pass deflections. Their corners are not really that good. KP Price, 2 interceptions. Carter Davis, 2 interceptions. Actually, 2 pass deflections. He had no interceptions. So that's not great. Syer Torrance, 3 pass deflections. Yeah, so you can see that their defense is very, very thin. Cameron Howard is an Alabama transfer, but didn't do much with the Crimson Tide. Played at Charlotte, too. What about Chandler Jordan? Georgia State. Didn't really play there. Yeah, when you look at this roster, a lot of no names, and I honestly think that they're neck and neck with Stanford as one of the worst teams in the ACC, one of the worst teams in the nation. I think I read an article. ESPN was ranking all the Power 4 teams, and they had Boston College at the last spot. I kind of have to agree with them here because it is a really thin roster. O'Brien should have got fired after last season. They should have got a new coach to rebuild, but they're bringing him back for another year, I guess. And let's look at their schedule. At Cincinnati. Cincinnati is not the same team as they were last season. They lost Sorsby, and they had some other guys who transferred out. But I still think they're a better team than Boston College. It's at Cincinnati, so I'm going to pick the Bearcats in that one, so they're 0-1. Versus Rutgers, I'm picking Rutgers. I know they're kind of middle of the pack, probably lower tier in terms of the Big Ten, but they're still in a better conference than the ACC. I would take Rutgers in that one, so I have Boston College at 0-2. Versus Maine, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna shock you people. I'm picking Maine in that game. I think this is the worst. This is the worst team in the ACC. They are worse than Stanford. So they're 0-3. I'm picking Maine in the upset. They'll probably beat Maine, but I'll pick Maine in that one. Versus Virginia Tech, that's a loss. So they're 0-4. At SMU, that's a loss, 0-5. Versus Pitt, that's a loss, 0-6. At Georgia Tech, that's a loss, 0-7. At Duke, 0-8. Versus Florida State, I think I picked. Florida State is really not that good, but I think they're better than Boston College. I will pick the Noles in that one, but don't be shocked if Florida State loses that game and Norvell is fired before that even happens. We usually play them on a Friday night, so I'm shocked that we're playing them on a Saturday. That'll probably be a noon game. It's not going to be worth watching. Yeah, so I'm going to pick them in that one. So they're 0-9 at Notre Dame. They're going to get massacred versus Syracuse. I would say that's a loss too, 0-11. And at Miami is also going to be a loss. So I have them at 0-12. I don't think they're going to win a single game. And it just, their roster is so bad. The fact that O'Brien got another chance to coach, considering how bad they were last season, I'm surprised. I'm totally shocked by that. All right, let's go on to SMU. SMU, I have higher expectations for. I think they're one of the best teams in the ACC. They're right on the same track as Clemson and Miami. I think it's going to be those three teams to compete for the ACC title. And I'll tell you who I have winning the ACC at the end of this podcast. But let's go over SMU's roster. They're led by Rhett Lashley. I really like Lashley. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. And what he's done with SMU in the short time he's been there, he's built them into a powerhouse. Last season was a bit disappointing. They could have played better. They were coming off a playoff appearance against Penn State, which they got rolled in. But they got Kevin Jennings coming back this season. Sorry about the ad here. Kevin Jennings is one of the best QBs when he's healthy in the ACC. But his problem, if you look at this, the interceptions. He has to cut down on his interceptions. If he throws 7 or 8 less interceptions, he's going to have a better season. He's going into his senior year. This is a make or break year for him. Do I think he's an NFL draftee? No. He might be a late pick, round 5, maybe round 6, but he could definitely go undrafted. He does throw for a lot of yards. He threw for 3,641 yards this past season, and then in his sophomore year, he had 3,245 yards. So his passing numbers have gone up, but the problem with him, if you look at his numbers, is his interceptions. Like I said before, he had 13 picks last season, 11 the year before. This was another thing that was glaring to me looking at his numbers. He had only 54 rushing yards. So he didn't have the same speed that he had in his sophomore year. I think he was playing hurt, and he had only 4 rushing touchdowns. Do I think he's a dual threat QB? Yes, when he's healthy. But he has to get more time in the pocket. Their offensive line was disappointing. I saw them play against Cal and Miami, and what struck to me as a problem for them was their pass protection. I don't think they had a good pass protection for Jennings, and that's why he struggled against tougher opponents. And then if we look at his numbers, he played terrible in that bowl game against Arizona, but I think they were losing a lot of guys to the draft, and they also had guys who were transferring out, so it was kind of a throwaway game. But then when you look at his numbers against Cal, he had 12 incompletions. He played good against Louisville, played good against BC. He also played decent against Miami. He didn't stand out in that game. He had 15 incompletions. So I think that's another problem with him against Wake Forest, at Wake Forest, which I think they lost that game, if I'm not mistaken. That was a game they should have won. He had 18 incompletions. So his problem is incompletions. He has to lower the incompletions. He has to get a better completion rate. He didn't play great against TCU. So the thing is with Jennings is that if he cuts down on the incompletions and the interceptions, I do think this team could go far. I think they could be a playoff team if everything aligns right. And Lashley is a great coach, so he can definitely motivate them for that spot. They have Kendrick Raphael as their new running back. So Raphael, he's coming from Cal. He had a great season last season, 943 yards and 13 touchdowns. If you look at his game splits, his numbers have gone up each season. Played good against SMU. I noticed him in that game. Played great against Boston College, and he played good against Texas Southern. So the whole thing with him is he has to be consistent. They also have Derek McFall, who's coming back for another season. McFall wasn't really their primary back. Their primary back, I think he transferred over to Clemson, actually. So they don't have as good of a running back core as they did last season, but Raphael is a good player. And Dremeko Green, I think he also will get more snaps as well. So decent running backs. Let's look at the receivers. Jalen Cooper, he's only a sophomore. So these are decent numbers for a guy going into his sophomore year. He can only get up and increase those numbers. He's 6'2", 108 pounds. I'm sure he's hit the gym. It's probably gained like 10 to 15 pounds. So that's going to be a gain of more receptions. They also have Yannick Smith. So he's coming from Eastern Carolina. He had a good season with the Pirates. So this is another guy that can definitely improve. He had 2 games over 100 yards receiving. Link Rhodes is another guy that's coming back. Link Rhodes, no numbers on him, so I think he might get an opportunity when needed. Cortorius Brown, let's look up his numbers. Nothing really to write home about. Ymir Knight, he's in the slot. Ymir is at 5'8", 186. He had a good season with 637 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns, 54 receptions. He can improve on that. Played great against Boston College. I mean, who didn't? He played good against Arizona. And then these other games, he doesn't really stand out. He had a couple of good plays against Miami. And they have another guy, Jalen Hale. He's coming from Alabama. Didn't do much with the Crimson Tide, so he could definitely get another opportunity with the Mustangs. Let's look at their defense. Actually, their tight ends. Theo Mellon Ostrom. He's coming from Texas A&M. So he was a big-time recruit for the Aggies. Didn't get any playing time. He realized that his opportunities were limited, so he transferred over to the Mustangs. Look for this guy to go and break out with the Mustangs. He will be a good target for Jennings. Randy Pittman Jr., he's coming from UCF. He had 208, and he actually was a player on Florida State too. So Randy, I noticed him at games here and there for my Seminoles. Randy is talented, but the thing with him is staying healthy. And the other thing too, he had drops, so he can be very dynamic. He's got a lot of skills. He's very good at getting hard, balls that are going into the sideline. So his catch radius is incredible. But the thing with him is staying healthy and staying consistent. I noticed he can be a little bit lazy with blocking. That's another problem with him. And I think Ostrom will complement Pittman. They also have Trey Jackson. He's coming from Texas Tech. Didn't do much with the Red Raiders. So this is a trio of tight ends that can definitely improve with a better QB. Look at their defense. Their defense has a lot of transfers. I'm going to go over the starters here, the supposed starters, the projected starters. Ira Singleton, he's going to be playing defensive end for them. He had 2.5 sacks, not bad. Malcolm Alcorn Crowder had 1.5 sacks. They got a big defensive end. Christian Davis, he's coming from Louisiana Tech. Jakai Lang. David Chukwumekage. I don't know. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. He probably will not be the starter. Spencer Wu. He's coming from Louisville. Well, last season he played for the Mustangs. So, Alexander Killorn. Look at their linebackers. 2 interceptions, not bad. Marcus White. He's coming from UMass. He had 5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. That's not bad for a guy that played with a team that was not good last season. Jamal Anderson. He played linebacker. Nothing about him, so he's not notable. Brandon Booker had half a sack. Brennan Maywaznu. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. He had 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 1 interception. Caden Marshall. He had 1 sack with Bowling Green. All right, let's look at their corners. Javon Thomas. He's coming from Texas A&M. He'll definitely get more reps with this team. Jalen Davis Robinson. He had 2 interceptions and 3 pass deflections. So their corners are decent. Tyron Poley Jr. Poley Jr., he had 2 interceptions, 2 pass deflections. So their secondary is not bad. Jimmy Wydrick, free safety. He had 1 interception, 8 pass deflections. So this guy, he can definitely get up there. Marcellus Barnes Jr., his right corner. 1 interception, 6 pass deflections. And nickelback Jarvis Lee to round everyone up. He had 2 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 pass deflections. So Jarvis Lee could be definitely an underrated guy for their secondary. Sorry about the ads, folks. I gotta go exit out. There we go. So let's look at their schedule. I do like their roster. I do think that they were better a couple seasons ago. At Florida State, I'm going to pick them to beat the Noles. I just think Florida State is in a downward spiral, and I just don't think it's going to get better with Norvell. Versus UC Davis, that's a win as well, so they're 2-0. At Louisville, I think I picked Louisville to win that game, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Saturday night game, or Saturday day game at 3:30. So I'm going to say Louisville wins that game, so now they're 2-1. Versus Missouri State, that's a win, so they're 3-1. Versus Boston College, that's a win, 4-1. Versus Virginia, that's a win, 5-1. Versus Cal, that's a game that they're going to get revenge, so that's a win, 6-1. At Syracuse, that's a win, 7-1. Versus Virginia Tech, that's a win, 8-1. Versus Wake Forest, that's a win, 9-1. At Notre Dame, that's a loss, 9-2. And then last but not least, at Stanford, that's a win, 10-2. This team can win 10 games. They could definitely win 10 games. This team is talented. Again, like I said before, Lashley, I think he's going to utilize those tight ends. The guy from Texas A&M, he's going to, Randy Pittman Jr., if he plays to his skill set and what he's capable of, he could be an unsung hero in that offense. Their running backs, yes, they got some new guys, but they also can improve and really help and take off the pressure of Kevin Jennings. Because Kevin Jennings, he's a good player. But the problem, again, like I said before with him, is consistency, pass completions, and interceptions. If he can limit the interceptions, limit the incompletions, SMU could win 11 games. I think they're a 10-win team. I think they're a 10-win team. Do I think they could sneak into the playoff? Yes. I think they're fully capable of doing that. And if they beat Notre Dame, for instance, which I just don't see happening because it's at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's a better team, they can definitely be capable of a playoff spot. They should be in the talks for the playoff conversation. Their schedule is very favorable if you look at it. They have a lot of home games that they should win. I think Louisville will be a tough test, but I do think they could go into Louisville and win that game. And like I said before, they're going to get their revenge against Cal, and they could make things interesting if they beat Notre Dame. I just don't see it happening, but crazier things have happened over at where does Notre Dame play? Sorry, guys, I'm going to do a little cheat sheet here and see where they play. Oh, it is Notre Dame. It's Indiana, so sorry about the brain fart. But anyways, I just don't see them winning at Notre Dame. All right, next up we got North Carolina State, NC State. They are led by Dave Doeren. Dave Doeren, I think he should have got fired after last season. They were one of the most disappointing teams in the ACC. They were he's been there for a while. Dave Doeren has been coaching there for 13 years. 13 seasons. He is mediocre as you can get mediocre. They finished 7th in the ACC. So they're a middle pack ACC team. I do think they're going to improve upon last season. They have a lot of guys coming back, including their QB, CJ Bailey. CJ Bailey, I think he has a lot of potential. I think he can be a top 25 pick in the NFL draft. I really do. But his problem is staying healthy and staying consistent. If you look at these numbers, they're very good. He has good size as a QB at 6'6". He has to get more weight. He's only 213, so I'm sure that was something he focused on the offseason. And he's only a junior, so, if he has a great season, he can declare for the draft, and I think he will go to the draft. But I do need to look at their schedule. He definitely had a better season last season than the season before. The team in general was not as good. He had games that he stood out against Georgia Tech, against Campbell, Virginia Tech. He played well. He played great against Duke. He played great against ECU. This guy's really talented. And then when you look at his numbers with rushing, he rushed for 215 yards last season, 279 yards the year before. He had 6 rushing touchdowns last season and 5 the year before. So he is a dual-threat QB. I think he is one of the better QBs in the ACC. I think he's the second-best ACC QB to Darian Mensah. I think Mensah's a little bit better than C.J. Bailey, but Bailey, like I said before, if he can build off of last season and he can throw for 30 touchdowns and 7 or 8 picks and he throws for over 3,000 yards and more, he's going to declare for the draft. I was shocked that he was coming back for another season because there were rumblings he wanted to transfer, but he came back for another season, and I think this will be his last season as the QB because I think he'll go to the draft. If he doesn't have a good season, go to the transfer portal. Cut your losses with NC State. Go somewhere else. Jaden Scott. Jaden Scott had a decent season for them. He wasn't their primary back. Their primary back transferred. So he's going to be the starter now. He had good numbers, 581 yards rushing. Really stood out against Georgia Tech. Again, he was the second back to, who was their primary back last season? Let me look this up. Hollywood Saunders, that sounds about right. Hollywood Smothers. Yeah, and he went over to Texas. So Smothers is no longer there, and Jaden Scott will be the primary back. They have Devon Gauss. Gauss is coming from North Carolina. He had 259 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Again, he's coming from a team that was not that good last season. He didn't get many carries. He's not going to be the primary back. It will be Scott instead. And then lastly, they have Jonathan Paylor. Paylor, again, not a guy that's notable here. Let's look at their wide receivers. Keenan Jackson, he's coming back for a junior year. He had decent numbers. I think he'd improve on that. He's now the primary receiver for them, or their receiver 1. Chance Robinson, that name sounds familiar. He's transferring from Miami. I actually don't know anything about him. Tyron Warren, coming from Alcorn State. Teddy Hoffman. Oh, so Teddy Hoffman, he's not playing. He got suspended. He was doing PEDs. He's an idiot. What an idiot. So now Josiah Trader, he'll be the second receiver. Yeah, because Teddy Hoffman got suspended. Not bad numbers. He was a Miami recruit. And then Ethan Dowdy, because now Hoffman got suspended. There's slot receivers. Let's look at them. Victor Snow. That's a cool name. Victor Snow. Sounds like a bad guy in a James Bond movie. Good numbers. 815 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. He did this as a member of the MAC conference with Buffalo. So he could definitely be a deep target for Bailey. Devon Dozier. He's coming from Appalachian State. Not terrible numbers, especially playing in the Sun Belt Conference. And he's got good size at 6'3". So C.J. Bailey has a decent receiving core. I don't know if Teddy Hoffman would help him, but I definitely see him doing better than last season. Let's look at their defense. Chase Bond. Their defense was not that good last season. He had 1.5 sacks. Josiah Victor, he's only a sophomore. He's going to get more reps. Katron Evans. Not a lot of notable guys here. Isaiah Shirley. Yeah, their front seven doesn't scare me. AJ Prim. Nope, nothing about him. Let's look at their linebackers. What's Jack stand for? I don't even know. Harvey Dyson. 8 sacks. Okay. So this guy could definitely stand out in their defense. Dyson. Dakari Nelson. Yeah, Dakari Nelson. Not much about him. Is that Pupo Aguirre? These are some random names, man. Adoree Evans. He's coming from Georgia. Didn't play there at all. He sat out as a redshirt. Tristan Teasdale. See what Teasdale did. Only one interception. Their defense is weak. Just looking at the stats, I'm not impressed with them. Ronnie Royal. Nothing much about him. King Mack. That's a cool name. He's coming from Penn State. King Mack is a decent player. He stood out in some games for Penn State. Brody Barnhart. Nothing much about him. Bryant Nelson. Played at North Texas. He had 6 pass deflections. Not bad. Assad Brown. Yeah. Their secondary is weak. Ty White. Let's look at his numbers. Yeah, nothing stands out for me. Do I think they're better than last season? Yes and no. Their defense looks weak. I think that was an issue last season. And it'll probably be the same this season. All right, let's look at their schedule here. We got Wake Forest and Syracuse next, and then we'll be done for tonight. They play at Virginia to start the season. I think in the preview I did for Virginia, I picked NC State. Man, their roster's okay. I do think C.J. Bailey's a better QB than Bo Pribula. Yeah, give me Bailey, man. I'll take NC State. So they'll win that game. Versus Richmond, that's a win. So they're 2-0 at Vanderbilt. I gotta look at Vanderbilt's roster. I know they lost a lot of guys to the draft, and then on top of it, sorry guys, I think I see a bug here. I think I killed it. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, just saw it on the wall. It got distracting. I got to look at Vanderbilt's roster, but it's at Vanderbilt. I'm going to pick that as a loss. I think Vanderbilt is building something special. I think that they have a better program than NC State. NC State hasn't been relevant in a while. And again, I was very surprised that Dave Dorian got another shot. I think he's an okay coach. I don't think he's great. And I was surprised that they gave him another year. So I'm going to pick that as a loss. So they're 2-1. Versus App State, I'm picking them to win that game. So they're 3-1. Versus Louisville, I think I picked them to beat Louisville. So I'll have them at 4-1. Versus Wake Forest, this game I feel like they're going to lose. They're going to lose a game that they should win. So I'm going to pick that as a loss. So I'll pick Wake Forest in that one, 4-2. At Stanford, that's a win, 5-2. Versus California, versus Cal, that's a win. So they're 6-2. Versus Duke, I had them winning that game, so they're 7-2. Versus Syracuse, I think they could beat them, 8-2. They'd be 9-2. Yeah, 9-2. At Florida State, I have them winning against them, and then beating North Carolina. I have them at 10-2. I'm a little shocked by that. I think they have a very. Here's the thing with them, and this is why I'm picking them to win 10 games. C.J. Bailey. If C.J. Bailey can play to his full potential and play like a top 25, top 20, maybe top 10, maybe top 15 NFL draft pick, sky's the limit. But Dave Dorian being the coach, that's where I draw a line. But they could surprise people. I do think they're going to be better than last season, and I think they could win 10 games. They have a lot of winnable games. So, yeah, I'm going to go and say that they'll go 10-2. I had Boston College at 0-12. I got to write this stuff down. I think I had SMU at 10-2 as well. Yeah, the ACC is going to be better this season. It had a bad season last season. I think it just can go up. All right, we got Wake Forest and Syracuse, and then I'll be done for the night. Again, we're trying to do a faster episode, and then I'll pick my ACC Player of the Year, ACC Coach of the Year, and my ACC Champion of the regular season and ACC Champion in their conference championship. So let's go over to Wake Forest. Wake Forest, they are led by... My share screen works here. Yep, there we go. It's got a stupid ad. Sorry, guys. These ads are annoying. I should get an ad blocker for this. Jake Dickert. I think he's in his second season. He replaced their coach that was there for a while. Yeah. So this is his second season. Dickert led Wake Forest to a 7th place finish in the ACC. So they were middle of the pack. They were 9-4. I didn't know they won that many games. I was shocked by that. Okay. They have a lot of guys returning, and then they have a lot of transfers as well. Their QB is different now. They have Gio Lopez. Gio Lopez, he played at South Alabama, and then he played for Bill Belichick at North Carolina. They have him listed at 6 feet. I've seen him play. He's more like 5'8", 5'10". He's not a tall guy. So that's being generous. He threw for 10 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. His completion rate is at 65%. Their passing yards are dismal. So they had a better QB last year. Who was their QB last season? Sorry, folks. I'm just checking up on information. I should know this stuff. Robbie Ashford. Robbie Ashford, he was... He didn't get drafted, so he's looking for a spot in the NFL, I guess. But Ashford was a lot better than Gio Lopez. So they are decreasing in terms of their QBs. I know he's a dual threat QB, but he only ran for 133 yards last season. He had 463 yards the year before. He was much better at South Alabama. So I think they're going to regress at QB. I'm not a big Gio Lopez guy. Ty Clark, he's coming back for them. Decent numbers. I just heard Declan. Katie Daniels. Yeah, we might have to wrap this up soon. He's probably going to be their second back. Swire Seidel. Nothing about him. Let me look at their tight ends. I'm not impressed by their offense at all. Cameron Johnson, coming from Vanderbilt. Actually, well, he played for Vanderbilt the season before. Landon Morris. This guy transferred all over the place. He went from Cal. He started out Syracuse, then Utah, then Temple, then California. It's like Pokemon. Can you catch them all? Too many schools. Will Lorenzel. Nothing about him. Let's look at the receivers. Antonio Meeks. I covered Antonio Meeks. He came from Louisville. He's talented, but I think he's just not a number one. One of Dame Davis Jr. But at UTEP, he could surpass him. He should be the number one receiver in their offense. Yeah, decent numbers. Carlos Hernandez. He's also a number one. Really stood out against Delaware and UNC. Didn't do so well against my Seminoles. I think they beat the Seminoles, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't watch that game. Nye Carr. He's coming from Miami. Didn't do much there. Chase Tyler. Nothing really much about him. All right, Cam. Let's look at their slot. Cam Shanks. He's not a true slot receiver, it looks like. And then Drayden Dickman. Played at Rice. Decent numbers. Their receiving core is very weak. And I also, like I said before, I just don't trust Gio Lopez. I don't think he's that good. Their defense is kind of the same as last season. Their defense was all right. Gabe Kirschke, not bad. He's a decent player. Tyler Walton. I'm just going to go over the starters. I'm not going to go over the backups. Zach Lavershin. Nothing much about him. Sider Mitchell, coming from LSU. Nothing about him. Got a lot of no names on defense. Dallas Afalva. Decent numbers. Matt Huron. Yeah, got a lot of no names. Langston Hardy. He had 7 sacks last season. That's good. So it's not all bad for them. Cameron Hardy. Nothing about him. Frank Cusano. Half a sack. Tywin McNichols. Played at UAB. Nothing about him, really. Yeah, they got nobody to write home about. Aiden Hall, let's look at their linebackers. That's just not good numbers. Bohm Jock. Yeah, nothing about him, really. Deuce Slades, what a cool name. Played at FIT. Okay numbers. Trayvon West. He's all right. Rayshawn Tongue. I don't know why my mouse did that. There you go. Nothing really about him. Joshua Patterson. Okay numbers. Braylon Johnson. Okay numbers. Miles Turpin. Bernard Causey. All right, numbers. He played at Georgia State before. Ashad Williams. Devon Patterson. How did this team win 9 games? Yeah, I'm not impressed by their roster. I think they are going to have a worse season than last season, actually. I think they're going to regress. Because Gio Lopez is not that good. Robbie, what's his name? Robbie Ashford was definitely better. I think Ashford was a much more talented QB than him. All right, versus Akron, I'll say they'll win that game. At Purdue, that's a loss. I think Purdue has a better roster than them. And again, Big 12 over ACC. So the Big 10 is definitely big brother here. So they're 0-2 versus Miami. That's a loss. 0-3 at Louisville. That's a loss. 0-4. I'll say they beat Stanford because Stanford sucks. So they're 1-4. Stanford could win that game. Who knows? At NC State, that's a loss. 1-5. At Cal, that's a loss. 1-6. Versus Virginia, that's a loss. 1-7. Versus Merrimack, they'll win that game 2-7 because that's a cupcake game. At SMU, they'll lose. So they're 2-8. At Georgia Tech, they'll lose 2-9, and then versus Duke, they'll lose, and they'll be 2-10. I think they're a 2-10 team. If you think they're more than that, be my guess. But I look at that roster; it's just not good. And Gio Lopez, like I said before, he sucked at UNC. He's probably going to suck there too. He's not going to be good. It's like Robbie Ashford was much better than Gio Lopez. Last but not least, a lot of people said that this was the most disappointing team in the ACC. They definitely regressed. And I think if they have another bad season, the coach will be on the hot seat. And I'm talking about the Syracuse Orange. They're the last team I'll preview for the ACC. And then I'll go over who I have winning Coach of the Year and who I have as winning Player of the Year, ACC Regular Season Champion, and ACC Tournament Champion. I think there's going to be 2, possibly 3 teams coming out of the ACC that will make the playoff, and I'll name them in a little bit. But let's go over Syracuse, led by Fran Brown. Fran Brown had a great first season, and then last season it fell apart. I think it was due to their schedule. They had a harder schedule than last season. I'm not giving them excuses, but still, I just don't think they're a talented team. Let's look at their QB situation. So they have Steve Angeli coming back, and Joey got hurt in the Clemson game. He's a tough kid. He's a Notre Dame transfer. He played all right for them last season. When he was healthy, he had 10 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I think he did something to his knee. I watched that game, actually, because I was cheering the heck out of Syracuse to beat Clemson. I hate Clemson. And then Joey played good in that game, and then he got hurt. And then their backup was terrible. Amari Odom. So he's coming from Kennesaw State. So if Angeli gets hurt, they could fall on Odom. Decent numbers at Kennesaw State. Danny Lauder, that's another guy that could get reps if they have a situation with QB with injuries. Their running backs are different this season. They have Ahmad Miller. Came from Jackson State. Nothing really about him. He might be a diamond in the rough. Fran Brown knows how to recruit. I give him credit on that. Juwan Johnson. He didn't do much, but this is a new opportunity for him. He could definitely emerge as a star. Calvin Russell III. He's a freshman. I think he was definitely. Let me look up his. That name sounds familiar. I think he was a McDonald's All-American. I don't think they have McDonald's All-American for football. I don't know. I'm not sure. He's out indefinitely. What? He had a spring football injury. Oh, that's not good. He was a 5-star recruit, yeah. So that's how I know about him, but he's out indefinitely. Will he be healthy for the start of the season? We'll see. That's a big loss on their offense. They are going to rely on this kid. He's going to be talented. Cole Weaver could emerge as the number 1 in that situation. He's coming from Miami, Ohio. If you look at his stats, this is a good receiver, especially to fill in for Russell as he recovers from his injury. There's Zamadre Mayweather. So he's coming from Boise State and Glendale. Community College. Matthew Auden, he's a transfer from Penn State. They got a lot of new guys, and he was a redshirt. Elijah Moore. I don't remember him being on Florida State. That name doesn't sound familiar to me. But yeah, if Calvin Russell III is hurt going into the season, that's going to be a big problem with their wide receivers. Let's look at their tight ends. These ads are so annoying, man. David Clement. Nothing to write home about. He's got good size at 6'6", 256. Noah Myers. All right, he had decent numbers, but he played for Western Kentucky. That's not saying much. He's going into a better conference. We'll see. Yeah, so their offense is okay, but a lot of question marks. They had some transfers on the defensive line, as you can see here. Toon Mez Adelie. 6 sacks, okay. Decent. Rashard Perry. He had half a sack. Their defense was not good last season. They gave up a lot of points. Dortivius Floney. So he's a transfer, nothing much about him. Dylan Fontes, coming from Maryland. He had 2 sacks. I think that's a better situation if you're going from Maryland to Syracuse for football. Isaiah Hastings. He was an Alabama recruit. Didn't work out there, I guess. Kayshawn Johnson from UT Martin. Nothing much about him. David Amorpo-Playa. I am botching these names. Nothing much about him. Chris Diapolina. 1 sack. Nothing. Their defense is weak, man. That is a big issue. Anton Delorier. He's from Canada. Oh, yeah, you know what? I think this was the kid who went viral. He was like, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he went viral on TikTok, and he's jacked out of his mind. The guy is built like a truck. But I definitely think he's on some sort of steroid for sure. He's definitely taking testosterone. It's not even funny. But his numbers are not great. Demetrius Samuel. Let's look at their corners. 1 interception. 9 pass deflections. That's not bad. Nazir Ward. He's coming from Western Kentucky. 1 interception. Cornell Perry. 1 pass deflection. Amare Snowden. Didn't do much. Let's look at the free safety. Brahim Long Jr. He had 1 interception. Tadarius Hughes. Nothing much about him. Chris Priel. He's a Georgia recruit. Didn't do much. Javon Lawrence. He's a freshman, redshirt freshman. David Kerr. He had 3 picks, so this guy could be a bright spot in their defense. And then lastly, Jai Eugene Jr. Nothing much to write home about. So their team, it hinges upon that kid that I was just talking about, the wide receiver. What was his name? Calvin Russell III. If Calvin Russell III can live up the hype, he's a 5-star recruit, sky's the limit. But if he gets hurt, which he already is, that could hurt them. And then Joey, I think he's a good QB, but he's not great. And I don't think he's going to win you more than 6 games. I think they're a 6-6, maybe 5-17. Let's look at their roster. Their record, schedule. Sorry, guys, I'm brain farting like crazy right now. Let's look at their schedule. I have them losing. Let's go over it one by one. Versus New Hampshire, that's a win. Versus Cal, I know it's a home game, but I think Cal is sneaky decent. I think that Cal can surprise people because of Tosh Lapoy. So I'm going to say that's a loss, so they're 1-1. At Pitt, I got Pitt in that game, so they're 1-2. At UConn was good last season. I got to look at their roster, but if I'm betting on that game, I take UConn. So they're 1-3. At Virginia, that's a loss, 1-4. Versus Louisville, that's a loss, 1-5. At North Carolina, the battle of the losers. I'll pick them over North Carolina. I think I did pick them over North Carolina, so that's a win. Let's look at this again. So win against New Hampshire, 1-0. Loss against Cal, so they're 1-1. At Pitt, that's a loss, 1-2. At UConn, that's a loss, 1-3. At Virginia, that's a loss, 1-4. Versus Louisville, that's a loss, 1-5. I think they'll win at North Carolina, so they're 2-5. Lose against SMU, lose against Clemson, NC State, they'll lose. They'll beat Boston College, and then they'll lose against Notre Dame. So I look at this record. I have them going 3-9, if I'm not mistaken. I have them beating North Carolina. I have them beating New Hampshire. Actually, no, they're 2-10. Yeah, they're 2-10. They're not a good team. But yeah, that's it with the predictions in terms of records. So I'm getting tired, guys. I was up editing last episode until about 1 a.m. in the morning, and it was an hour and 40 minutes, the episode in total. So in the ACC conference, the player of the year I have is Darian Mensah. I think Darian Mensah is really going to take off. He has a better team around him. He's a better supporting cast around him, better coach. And Miami, I think they're the team to beat in the ACC, but the ACC regular season champion, going off of what I have in these predictions, I have Clemson at 11-1. I think they will win the ACC regular season championship. However, when they play against Miami in the ACC championship, because I think they'll hold the tiebreaker over SMU, there's going to be some controversy to that. I think that it's going to be Miami that wins the ACC championship. And it might be one of the last conference championships we'll see in the foreseeable future, because if the committee decides to expand the playoff, they're going to get rid of these championship games. They're not going to mean anything. In terms of coach of the year, I'm going to go with Tosh Lapoy. I think Tosh Lapoy is going to really build up Cal. He's going to make them I wouldn't say a contender just yet, but they're going to be sneaky good. He's going to get the best out of the defense. He's going to get the best out of the offense. The guy knows how to coach, at least as a defensive coordinator. And I think he's going to do the same as a head coach. I'm excited to see what he could do with the Cal Bears. That's his alma mater. He knows the area pretty well. He's a good recruiter. And I have Cal going 8-4, if I'm not mistaken, or 9-3. I had them going 8-4. Yeah, so Cal is one of those teams that can sneak up on you and surprise you. I think the most disappointing team will be Florida State. I think some people have Florida State winning 6 or 7 games. I don't. I have them going 3-9. And guys, I'm a Florida State alum. I can tell you straight up how I feel about the Seminoles and where they're at. They're not contenders. They're pretenders. Another disappointing team I have, if I'm looking at these rosters, Duke is going to regress. I have them going 5-7. I think UNC is terrible. I think they're a 2-10 team. Stanford's the worst team, I think. No, Boston College is. Boston College I have going 0-12 because I have them losing against Maine. And then Stanford 1-11. I have Wake Forest going 2-10. I just don't like Wake Forest's roster. Gio Lopez is terrible, like I said before. I would be interested to see how they do. Syracuse, I'm not a fan of their roster either. So the ACC, I think we'll have 2 playoff teams in Miami and Clemson, but you can make an argument if they get notable wins, especially if they win at Notre Dame. SMU will be a third team in the ACC to get into the playoff. I think the ACC can go on. It can only get better from last season. It was very disappointing last season. I mean, heck, you have Virginia against Duke in the ACC Championship. Who saw that happening? Not me. So, yeah, those are my predictions. Again, I got Clemson winning the regular season championship, but in terms of the championship game, I got Miami. I have Miami and Clemson as playoff teams, possibly SMU as a third, and then Darian Mensah winning Player of the Year, and then Coach of the Year is Tosh LaPoy. I think Cal is the surprise team. They could go 8-4, possibly 9-3. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, I'm exhausted. I didn't get much sleep after editing last night. So, again, comment, like, and subscribe. And tomorrow I'm going to record episode 11. Thank you, guys. I love you all. Good night.